A cathedral in Norwich, England. The year is 1150. Sunlight streams through stained glass windows, each pane telling a story of martyrs and miracles, painting the cold stone floor in pools of crimson and gold. The air is thick with incense, frankincense, and myrrh, the smell of holiness itself. Pilgrims shuffle forward on their knees, their faces wet with tears, their hands clutching rosaries worn smooth by years of desperate prayer. They are here for him. A small shrine sits beneath a vaulted arch. Candles flicker around a painted icon, the face of a child, no more than 12 years old. His eyes turned heavenward, his expression frozen in beatific suffering. This is William, Little Street William of Norwich, murdered by the enemies of Christ, a holy innocent, a miracle worker. The pilgrims press coins into the offering box, silver pennies, gold florins. The church records every one. They whisper prayers. Street William, heal my daughter. Street William, forgive my sins. Street William, intercede for us. The scene is beautiful. It is sacred. It is drenched in devotion, soaked in the collective grief and hope of 1,000 desperate souls. This is what we are taught to see when we think of the medieval church. The comfort, the community, the faith. Now, picture this, 2 streets away. The same city, the same year, midnight. A wooden door, weathered, reinforced with iron bands, explodes inward under the weight of a battering ram. Splinters fly. A man named Isaac, a Jewish leather merchant, 43 years old, father of 3, is dragged from his bed by his hair. His wife, Rebecca, screams. His children, Sarah, 9, Jacob, 6, Miriam, 4, cling to her nightgown, their small faces frozen in terror. The mob pours in like a flood. Torches are hurled through the windows. The flames catch on the curtains, the furniture, the Torah scrolls Isaac's grandfather brought from Germany. The heat is immediate, suffocating. Rebecca tries to shield the children with her body, and standing at the edge of the crowd, untouched by the chaos, illuminated by the orange glow of burning homes, is a monk. He is holding a leather-bound manuscript. He does not swing a club. He does not throw a torch. He does not even raise his voice. He simply points, and he whispers, just loud enough for the front row to hear, "They killed our saint." The crowd roars. The club falls. Isaac's skull cracks like pottery. By dawn, his family is ash. His home is a blackened skeleton. His shop, the leather goods, the tools, the life he built over 2 decades is looted, emptied, erased. And the monk returns to the cathedral. He adds a new entry to the manuscript, another miracle attributed to Street William, another reason for pilgrims to come, another surge in donations. This is not a story about medieval ignorance. This is not a story about the Dark Ages, that convenient, sanitizing phrase we use to shrug off atrocities as the inevitable product of a less enlightened time, as if brutality were simply in the air like bad weather. This is a story about institutional greed dressed in holy robes. We are taught in textbooks, in documentaries, in the cultural mythology we inherit that the church was a victim of its era, that it merely reflected the prejudices of the time, that it was passively swept along by the tide of superstition, doing its best to preserve civilization in a barbaric world. But the evidence, the receipts, the ledgers, the papal bulls, the shrine construction budgets reveals something far more chilling. The church didn't just tolerate the blood libel. It invented it, it marketed it, and it profited from it. This is the story of how a lie became a saint, and how a saint became a license to kill. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the moment the machine was born. March 1144. Norwich, England. A city of 5,000 souls, clustered around a Norman cathedral still under construction. its towers scraping the sky like stone fingers reaching for God. A 12-year-old apprentice skinner named William is found dead in Thorpe Wood, just outside the city walls. His body shows signs of violence, bruises, cuts, but the cause of death is unclear. No witnesses, no confession, no smoking gun, an unsolved murder. Tragic, yes. A family shattered. A community unsettled, but unremarkable. In a medieval city where violence is woven into the fabric of daily life, where public executions are entertainment, where bodies hang from gibbets at crossroads, where bandits haunt every forest road, one dead child is a footnote. Except a monk named Thomas of Monmouth sees something the rest of the world does not. He sees an opportunity. Thomas is not a bishop. He is not an abbot. He is not a cardinal or a pope. He is a mid-tier ecclesiastical bureaucrat, the medieval equivalent of a middle manager whose career has stalled. He arrives in Norwich in 1149, 5 years after William's death, and he notices something troubling. The cathedral is struggling. Pilgrim traffic is down. The construction fund is anemic. The bishop is under pressure from Rome to increase revenue. The diocese needs a product, something to put Norwich on the map, something to compete with Canterbury, with Winchester, with the lucrative pilgrimage circuits that are enriching other sees. And William's unsolved murder? That is raw material. Thomas begins to investigate. He interviews locals. He collects testimonies. He visits William's family. He speaks to neighbors. And slowly, carefully, methodically, he begins to weave a narrative, not the truth, something better than the truth, something marketable. In 1173, nearly 30 years after William's death, Thomas publishes his masterpiece, The Life and Miracles of Street William of Norwich. The story he tells is this: William was not killed by a random act of violence. He was not mugged. He was not caught in a brawl. He was ritually murdered by Jews in a grotesque parody of the crucifixion of Christ. According to Thomas, the Jews of Norwich lured William with promises of work in a tannery. They gagged him with a cloth. They shaved his head in mockery of Christ's crown of thorns. They bound his hands and feet. They nailed him to a wooden cross, a small one, child-sized, custom-built for the occasion. They pierced his side with a lance. They drained his blood into ceremonial vessels for use in Passover rituals. Then they dumped his body in the woods and went about their business. None of this is true. There is no physical evidence, no blood-stained cross, no ceremonial vessels, no eyewitnesses, no confessions, not even under torture, which tells you something, because medieval interrogators were not known for their restraint. There is only Thomas's manuscript. And Thomas's manuscript is a work of imagination, but here's what makes it brilliant from a marketing perspective. It transforms an unsolved tragedy into a sacred conspiracy theory. It gives the murder a villain, not a random criminal, but an identifiable enemy. The Jews, the outsiders, the Christ killers living 2 streets away. It gives the cathedral a saint, a local boy, a martyr, a miracle worker whose intercession can heal the sick and absolve the guilty. And it gives the community something even more valuable than answers: permission to rage. The shrine is built. The icon is painted. The pilgrims begin to arrive. First a trickle, then a flood. They come from Norfolk, from Suffolk, from across England. They bring coins. They bring offerings. They bring their grief and their guilt and their desperate need to believe in something. The cathedral's revenue doubles, then triples, and 2 streets away, in the Jewish quarter, a cluster of modest homes huddled behind a wooden palisade. A man named Isaac watches his world begin to crack. At first, it is small things. Neighbors who once greeted him in the market now cross the street when they see him coming. His daughter, Sarah, comes home from playing with Christian children and asks, "Papa, Why did Emma's mother say we killed Jesus? Isaac tells her it's a misunderstanding. He tells her it will pass. He tells her the law will protect them, because they are subjects of the king, and the king's peace extends to all who pay taxes and obey the law. He believes this. He is wrong. Within weeks, the whispers become shouts. A crowd gathers outside his home. They are not a mob, yet not quite. They are his neighbors. The cobbler who bought his leather for 20 years. The brewer, whose wife he once helped nurse through fever. The carpenter, whose son played with Jacob. But Thomas's manuscript has done something to them. It has renamed them, and the name it has given them is no longer neighbor. It is witness to evil. Someone throws a stone. It shatters Isaac's window. Sarah screams. Rebecca pulls the children away from the glass. Isaac goes to the door. He opens it. He tries to reason with them. He says, "I knew William's master. I sold him leather. I had no reason to harm the boy. Please, we are your neighbors." But they don't see a neighbor anymore. They see what Thomas told them to see. The door breaks. The torches fly. Isaac dies with his daughter's hand in his, her small fingers going cold as the smoke fills his lungs and the flames devour everything he built: his home, his livelihood, his life. The next morning, the cathedral records a surge in donations. A local chronicler notes the event in his ledger. The Jews' wickedness was punished. Street William's justice prevails. This is the moment the machine is born. The William of Norwich formula replicates like a virus, because Thomas of Monmouth didn't just invent a local saint. He invented a template, a blueprint, a step-by-step guide for converting tragedy into profit, and church officials across Europe are watching. They see the revenue. They see the pilgrims. They see the power that comes from having a martyr cult, and they think, "We want that." 171. Blois, France. A child goes missing. No body is ever found. No evidence of foul play. The child likely drowned in the Loire, a common accident in a city built on a river. But the local bishop, a man named William of the White Hands, sees an opportunity. He declares that Jews have committed ritual murder. He does not investigate. He does not interview witnesses. He does not examine evidence. He simply decrees 31 Jewish men, women, and children are rounded up and burned alive in a wooden tower on an island in the river. The entire community, shopkeepers, scribes, mothers, infants, their property is seized by the church. Their homes are sold. Their possessions are auctioned, and a cult springs up around the martyred child. A child whose body was never found, whose death was never proven, whose entire story is a fabrication. Pilgrims arrive. The coins pour in. 1255. Lincoln, England. A boy named Hugh, 8 years old, drowns in a well. His body is discovered weeks later, bloated and unrecognizable. A local priest, named John of Lexington, sees his chance. He claims Jews kidnapped Hugh, fattened him for 10 days like a sacrificial lamb, then crucified him in a secret chamber beneath the synagogue. None of this happened, but King Henry III, eager to distract from his own political failures, eager to seize Jewish assets to fund his wars, personally endorses the cult. 18 Jewish men are executed without trial. Their property is confiscated. Their families are expelled, and the shrine of Little Street Hugh becomes the second wealthiest pilgrimage site in England, eclipsed only by the tomb of Thomas Becket at Canterbury. The cathedral keeps meticulous records. We can still read them. We can see the accounting. Miracles reported in the first year, 147. Pilgrim donations collected, 2,400 silver pennies. Shrine construction cost, 800 pennies. Net profit, 1,600 pennies. This is not folklore. This is not mythology. This is not the Dark Ages being dark. This is industrialized scapegoating. 1475. Trent, Italy. A 2-year-old boy named Simon Unverdorben disappears during Passover week. His body is found 3 days later in a canal that runs beneath the Jewish quarter. The local bishop, a man named Johannes Hinderbach, ambitious and deeply in debt, sees his salvation. He orders the arrest of every Jewish man in the city. 15 are tortured. Under the rack, the wheel, the strappado, they confess to ritual murder. They are executed. Their families are expelled. Their synagogue is demolished. Their cemetery is paved over. And Simon's remains are enshrined in the cathedral. But here's the detail that should make your blood run cold, that should strip away any remaining illusion that this was merely medieval ignorance. Pope Sixtus IV, the Supreme Pontiff, the Vicar of Christ, the administrative and spiritual head of the Catholic Church, personally authorizes Simon's sainthood. The Vatican, not some provincial diocese, not some backwater parish, but the Vatican itself stamps its approval on a cult built on tortured confessions and mass murder. The shrine attracts pilgrims for centuries. It generates millions in revenue. And when Jewish communities across Europe beg the Church to investigate, to stop the massacres, to examine the evidence, to please, in the name of God, look at what you are doing, they are ignored. Because the evidence doesn't matter. The prophet does. Let me show you what hope looked like in this system. York, England, the 16th of March 1190. A Jewish woman named Sarah stands on the ramparts of Clifford's Tower, the stone keep at the center of York Castle. Below her, a mob, fueled by rumors of a blood libel accusation from a nearby town, whipped into frenzy by a charismatic priest, armed with clubs and torches, and righteous fury is battering down the gates. She is holding her 2 children, a boy, 6, a girl, 4. Their faces are pressed against her chest. She can feel their small hearts hammering like trapped birds. She has no legal defense. The king's law, in theory, protects Jews. But the king is in France, fighting a war. The local sheriff has fled. The church has declared her people guilty by existence. There is no trial, no evidence, no chance to speak, to explain, to prove innocence. There is only the mob. Sarah looks down at her children. She looks at the 150 other Jews trapped in the tower with her families she has known her entire life. Elders who taught her to read, children who played with her children. And she makes a choice. She and the others slit their children's throats first, so they will not suffer what the mob will do to them. Then they slit their own. The mob breaks through. They find the bodies. They loot them. They burn the tower. And the church? The church seizes the Jewish quarter, the homes, the shops, the synagogue. The Archbishop of York sells the properties at auction. The profits are divided between the diocese and the crown. This is the routine. Accusation, massacre, seizure, profit, repeat. And it continues for centuries. Here is where the story explodes. The Vatican quietly issues a statement. Buried in the minutes of a low-level commission, filed away in the archives, never publicized, never preached from any pulpit. There is no credible evidence to support accusations of Jewish ritual murder. 1759. Let that date sit with you. That is 615 years after William of Norwich. 615 years of shrines. 615 years of pogroms. 615 years of children's corpses converted into currency. Of families annihilated. Of communities erased. And even then, even with the Vatican's admission, the cults persist. Because the statement is not a denunciation. It is not a confession. It is not an apology. It is not a command to dismantle the shrines, to stop the pilgrimages, to return the stolen property. It is a whisper, a bureaucratic memo, a footnote. The shrines remain. The pilgrims keep coming. The coins keep flowing. It takes another 206 years until 1965, during the Second Vatican Council for the Catholic Church, to formally, publicly, officially repudiate the Blood Libel. 1965. The same year, the Voting Rights Act is signed in the United States. The same year, The Sound of Music wins the Academy Award for Best Picture. The same decade, humans walk on the moon. And until that moment, until 1965, the cult of Saint Simon of Trent is still active, still enshrined, still attracting pilgrims, still generating revenue. 490 years. For 490 years, the Church allowed a child's remains, a child whose murderers confessed under torture, whose death was used to justify the expulsion and execution of an entire community, to be worshipped as a saint. Now picture this image. Hold it in your mind. Left side, the golden reliquary of Simon of Trent in the cathedral. The craftsmanship is exquisite. Jewels encrusted in the gilded frame, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, each one donated by a wealthy pilgrim seeking indulgence. Candles flicker. The air smells of incense. Coins are piled in the offering box, glinting in the light. Right side, the mass graves of Trent's Jewish community, Regensburg's Jewish community, Nuremberg's, Prague's, Vienna's, bones stacked in unmarked pits, rotting in the shadow of the very cathedrals that condemned them. No markers, no names, no prayers, just silence. Gold above, bones below. This is the economy of sanctified violence, and the Church collected both. Let me be absolutely clear. This is not an attack on modern Catholics. This is not an attack on faith itself, on prayer, on the human need for the sacred. Millions of Christians today stand on the side of justice, truth, and reconciliation. Many have spent their lives dismantling the very structures I am describing. Many have walked into the wreckage of history and done the hard, unglamorous work of healing. This is not about them, but we cannot heal what we refuse to examine. The Church, as an institution, as a political and economic apparatus, as a bureaucracy with balance sheets and property holdings and revenue targets, built a machine that turned children's corpses into currency and entire communities into kindling. And that machine was not dismantled because of moral awakening. It was dismantled because it stopped being profitable. By 1965, the pilgrimage economy had collapsed. Mass tourism had replaced religious travel. The shrines were empty. The coins had dried up. The Church didn't repudiate the Blood Libel because it was the right thing to do. It repudiated the Blood Libel because the market had moved on. So here is the question we must carry forward. The question that elevates this story from a historical atrocity into a timeless warning. How do institutions weaponize innocence? How does a dead child become a saint? How does a saint become a massacre? How does massacre become policy? This is not a medieval problem. This is a human problem. Today, right now, we see the same architecture, the same blueprint, political propaganda that packages tragedy into talking points, culture wars that monetize outrage, that convert grief into clicks, clicks into ad revenue into power, algorithms that learn what makes you angry and feed you more of it. Because anger is engagement, and engagement is profit. The tools have changed. The telecommunications are faster. The reach is global. But the blueprint, the machinery of blame, the packaging of victimhood, the profiting from rage has not changed. The Blood Libel is not history. It is a warning about what happens when institutions are allowed to sanctify lies. when profit is disguised as piety, when the powerful are permitted to name the enemy and count the dead as saints. So refuse to forget. Refuse to let the gold erase the graves. Refuse the easy story, the story that tells you this was just the way things were, that no one could have known better, that the past is a foreign country and we should not judge. They knew, the bishops knew, the popes knew, the kings knew. They had the evidence. They had the testimonies. They had the capacity to investigate, to stop the violence, to dismantle the lie. They chose not to, because the lie was profitable and the truth was not. So here is what I am asking you to do. Become a witness. Share this story. Not to attack faith, but to defend it from those who would pervert it into a weapon. Demand that the unnamed graves be named. Demand that the stolen property be accounted for. Demand that history textbooks stop sanitizing atrocity with phrases like medieval ignorance and start naming institutional complicity. And never, ever let innocence be weaponized again, because the lie did not die in 1965. It evolved. It wears different masks now. It speaks different languages. It targets different enemies, but the machinery is the same. And the only immunity we have, the only defense that has ever worked, is memory. So remember Isaac. Remember Sarah. Remember the 150 souls in Clifford's Tower who chose death over what the mob would do to them. Remember the children whose bodies were stolen, whose deaths were packaged, whose names were turned into weapons against the innocent. Remember that this was not chaos, this was policy, and refuse with every fiber of your being to let it happen again.